Have you ever heard of anyone who's been buried twice? Yeah, I did say that. Buried twice. So I never have until now. I've just read a story online about a lady in Ireland who died twice. This happened back in 1705, and it's a lady called McGorry. And McGorry is a young woman, and she passes away of an illness. And whatever illness she has, I couldn't find it online. She's buried straight away. There's no hesitation. There's no waiting around. This woman passes away in the evening time, and by the next morning, she's in the ground. She's gone. That evening, two men are seen coming into the graveyard. Now, these men, they're not just out for a midnight stroll. They haven't come from the pub and had a few drinks and they've got themselves lost. These men are actually out because they have a job to do. And these men are body snatchers. Now, if you guys don't know what a body snatcher is, a body snatcher is somebody who gets paid to steal bodies from the ground. This is a job. It was a profession years ago. I know this because I had done a tour in Kilmainham jail, and the guy had said that the hospital across the way, they had problems with body snatchers and people who will come in and rob the bodies. And they said like a body would be buried and it would be taken by the next morning. So this is what these guys did. They went around and they took bodies. Obviously at the time there was no donor card, so nobody knew that their body was going to be taken or that they wanted their body to be taken, and they had no choice. These bodies were taken and they were brought to the likes of colleges and to hospitals, and these guys were paid for these bodies. So that the doctors could study the inside of the body for these, young students who needed to learn about the body. It was genuinely just something that happened, unfortunately, years ago. I don't know if it still is something that happens now. But yeah, it's just unfortunate, I suppose. But yeah, these guys walk into this graveyard, shovel in hand, they are ready to do their job. And they come across this fresh soil. And they realise it's a fresh body, they're in good form. I mean, a fresh body years ago cost £3. Like that's what a fresh body would cost, and that's what they'd be paid. It would be £3, and £3 is a lot of money. My mum has told me stories from years ago, my dad as well, and like that's a lot of money for someone to be earning. So like you can imagine these guys are earning a fortune, and they're taking a body and night, and they're getting £3 for it. Like, there's some certain amount of money coming into the house. But they start digging and they come across the coffin. They open the coffin. There's McGorry. She's just chilling, and they realise they've hit the mother load. And the reason why is because McGorry is wearing a wedding ring. Now, that's to me and you, that would be nothing out of the ordinary. But years ago, people weren't buried with any sort of jewellery on them. They wouldn't be buried with engagement rings or wedding rings or jewellery or pins and brooches, and because to the family, they could be pawned. That could be food. That was food for the table. It was rent. It was, wood for the fire. So no one was ever buried with anything valuable. Either the family kept it or they pawned it. But obviously McGorry was buried with her wedding ring. Now, the reason why she's buried with her wedding ring is because when her husband went to take it off when she had passed away, due to the illness that McGorry had, her fingers had swelled. So he genuinely couldn't take the ring off. They didn't have time, and he just said, look, it's fine. She can be buried with it. So these two body snatchers, they feel like they've hit the mother load. They're like, £3 for the body, we can pawn the ring, like we ain't going to work tomorrow, we're heading straight to the pub, they're on a roll. So they go to take the ring off and they realise no, like it's on there, it's not coming off, her fingers are swollen. No hesitation, they take a sharp knife from the back of their pocket and they take the finger clean off. I mean clean off. And seconds after this has happened, McGorry wakes. Now, McGorry is the woman who's dead, who's deceased. This woman just sits right up and starts screaming hysterically. Now, I've read that two things could have happened. Number one is that the men dropped dead of a heart attack there and then. I don't blame them. I mean, that must have been a shock to the two men when they took the finger off and to realise that this corpse has just sat up. So I suppose that could be something that happened. The second story as well that I've read is that the two men ran off and they dropped that job profession straight clean off the CV. These men were like, no, we're just going to go back to being plumbers. That's just not even worth the risk. I like to believe that they ran off. I don't like to think that they died. I like to think that they lived with scare of it for the rest of their life. You know, they lived in fear of it. I like to think that happened. So yeah, McGorry is, you know, she's sitting, she's in this coffin, she's in the ground, you know, she's covered in blood, she's missing a finger. I mean, this woman's thinking, could my day get any worse? Like, I literally went to bed last night not feeling well, and they've buried me. Like, most people go to the doctor. Like, this family just was like, we're just gonna bury her. So McGorry gets up, she dusts herself off, she's like, I'm heading home. Like, I need a shower. Like, geez, I'm filthy. This is ridiculous. So she heads off for home. At home now is her husband, who's a doctor, and their kids. And he's just put the tea down to the table. You know, he's not feeling great. Obviously, he's buried his wife that day. And a knock comes to the door. And it's said, he's quoted to have said to his eldest, Jesus, if your ma wasn't dead, I'd think that was her knocking. That's exactly what he said. Her husband gets up from the table and he walks out to the hall. He opens the front door and there stands his wife. She's covered in muck, you know, she's blood all over, she's missing a finger, but most importantly, this woman's alive. You know, this man has buried his wife in the morning time. I can only imagine how he's like, words can't even describe, I'm sure, how he's feeling. This is where the story kind of takes a bit of a sad turn. McGorry's husband passed away. He took a massive heart attack there and then. I mean, the shock, I'm sure, of seeing his wife standing there at the door, you know, who we thought was passed away, and she's missing a finger. And it was probably all too much for him and his heart. The following day, her husband was buried in the plot that McGorry came out of that the day before. So it didn't go to any waste. Somebody took it, snapped it up straight away. He was like, you're not having it, I will. And yeah, he was buried there. So McGorry, obviously, because she was young, she went on, she remarried, she had more kids, and yeah, she lived, seeing it to a ripe old age, and lived a happy and healthy life. She's buried down the country in a graveyard, and her headstone has written on it, which I think has a bit of humour to it. I think the family obviously had good sense of humour, because on it is written, buried twice and lived once. And I think that's perfect sense of humour for her. It must have been the story of the century. I can imagine it being told every Christmas at the Christmas table, at the time that Ma died and then came back again. But yeah, that's literally the story. I just wanted to come on and give you all something to laugh about. I was just reading it here now, doing a bit of research on Glasnevin Cemetery, and put something into Google, and this story came up. Now, I also have tried to research of other people who have been buried twice, but I couldn't find anyone else. Now, I thought I had, when I was actually researching Glasnevin Cemetery, I thought I came across a woman who had been buried there, and obviously came back to life again, but she hadn't. She actually had faked her own death. There was a €500 insurance savings pit in the post office, and she faked her own death to try and get the money. That's another long story. I'm sure I'll probably do a story on that, a little video on that as well, if you wanted to hear about that. But that is literally the story. I just wanted to come on. I just thought bit of humour in it, and why not? There's so much bad news going around at the moment. I just thought I'd come on and share a bit of good news, a bit of funny news. Really, that's all this is. So yeah, that is the story about a woman who lived once and died twice. So yeah, good on McGorry. I don't know how you get on with your life after that happening, but she did. she took it all on board and she just went with it, you know. I'm sure she had no fear of knowing what was down there when she was going the second time. But yeah, that's literally it. So I hope everyone has a lovely Saturday, and I just hope everyone stays safe.